Basic training, Marine Corps basic training, Paris Island, South Carolina. Scared to death. When I got off the bus, I immediately started the harassment, the yelling, but I soon did okay with it. I took it all in stride and made it through the training. We had an honor platoon. We had won all the awards in basic firing range and marching and the obstacle course. My platoon won everything, so we were considered an honor platoon. So that was in May of '68. I went on to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where we did our advanced training, and that's when I qualified again with the M16, because we had M14s in basic. They were just converting from the M14s to the M16s. So at Camp Lejeune, we were able to qualify with the M16. But I also went to machine gun school and qualified with the M60 machine gun, which I did much better with. And so that's what I became. I became what they call an 0331 M60 machine gunner. So that was my basic MOS. I carried the M60 the whole time I was in Vietnam, which was a 26.5-pound weapon. And at the time I was 5'5" and about 135 pounds, so had a big weapon. Yeah, we first got our first leave, 30-day leave to go home. And then after the leave ended, went on to Pendleton, California, another Marine base on the West Coast. And we did some more training there. And then from Pendleton, we shipped out to Vietnam from there. But with a stopover in Hawaii and then another one in Okinawa. We were only supposed to be in Okinawa 24 hours, and we wound up staying 2 months. So 2 more months of training there, because we didn't really have a job. We weren't even expecting to be there. So when we did finally leave, we had 1 day's notice that we were going, and that's when we flew into Vietnam. I flew into the northern part of South Vietnam, which is Da Nang. And that's considered I Corps. The southern part of the country was divided into 3 sections: First Corps, Second Corps, and Third Corps. And I was in I Corps, which was the most northern province of South Vietnam, right on the DMZ, in other words. And that's where I served all my time. Yeah. First night there, we had temporary quarters because we were going to be sent out to join up with our units wherever. And they got rocket attacked the first night. 122 rockets, Russian-made 122 rockets. And we didn't even know where the bunkers or anything was because we were brand new. But we made it through that. And 2 days later, we were divided up and sent out to our assigned units. And mine turned out to be 7th Marines, Kilo Company, 3rd Battalion. Yeah, basically when I got over there, we'd run day patrols. One day a day patrol, the next day we'd run night patrol and night ambushes. And then the third day you would have hole watch, bunker watch. So that was considered your day off. Yeah, first night out on an ambush, the squad came on a hooch, which is a Vietnamese hut, more or less. And I was towards the end of the column, and I heard our point man call out for whoever was in to come out, and they came out shooting. And he was wounded, and there was 4 South Vietnamese in the hooch. And 3 of them went out the back of it, and all of us just turned and opened up on them. And we got them all, but we had 1 man wounded. And it turned out to be a North Vietnamese paymaster. He was there to meet the head of the village to pay the South Vietnamese, or not South Vietnamese, but the Viet Cong. So we got a whole bunch of paperwork, captured a whole bunch of paperwork with names and stuff on it. So we got a big congratulations on that one. That was my very first night out. So we had a guy wounded that night, and we had 4 of them. Well, the first couple months I was there, it was a couple times a week. We would have ambushes and guys wounded, guys killed, you know, pretty frequently the first couple months. And then we hit a lull for a couple months, not too much. And then towards the end, it got bad again. Yeah. I was on a lot of operations towards the end of my tour. I was wounded twice on the same operation, but it was a multi-battalion operation with Army guys, ARVNs and Marines, and it was a long 3-phase operation. So I was wounded on the first phase of it, and then returned to my unit after 2 weeks and wounded on the third phase, and that's when I lost my arm and got wounded in both legs. Well, the first time I was wounded, it was a minor wound. I took a piece of shrapnel in the back of my neck, and I stayed with my unit, but by the next morning, that neck muscle froze up and I couldn't turn my head. So my CO says, "You're out of here." You know, I didn't want to go, but "You're out of here." So they called the chopper and I got medevaced out to the hospital ship Sanctuary off the coast, and that was quite an experience. I didn't realize how good those guys ate. It was a Navy ship. The Navy has the best chow. So I spent 2 weeks out on the ship eating steak and ice cream, and it was like a vacation. And then once they got me squared away, then I was sent back out to my unit, which was starting the second phase of that operation. The name of the operation was Oklahoma Hills. It was a clear, sweep and clear, looking for villages up in the mountains and weapons caches where they'd hide volume of weapons and stuff like that. And we had quite a bit of action on that operation. And we had a lot of captured weapons. We usually destroy them on the spot because you can't carry them out. So we would set charges and destroy them.
Can you talk about the story about what happened to your arm?
Yeah, we were on that third phase of that operation, and we had set up a perimeter for the night and sent scouts out, and no action, nothing. Next morning, we got ready to leave that base camp, and we started moving down into a valley. I was in the front squad. That's probably about 5 guys back from the front, and snipers started. We had 2 or 3 guys shot in the head within just a couple minutes by snipers. We later found out they were snipers that were tied up in trees. They would tie themselves up there. So if they were wounded, they would, they'd literally stay up there. We got hit hard, and we tried to pull back up to the top of the ridge where we had cover, and we really couldn't because the snipers were really doing a job on us. So I positioned my M60 and just kept firing volleys, ammo after ammo. I mean, I run out of ammo twice, and they were passing ammo down to me. And most of the guys got pulled back up on the top of the ridge and got cover. But it went on like that for most of the day. We were losing a lot of guys, and so we called in an airstrike virtually on top of ourselves to get out of it. I mean, there was nothing else we could do. So to this day, I'm not 100% certain I was wounded by them or by our own airstrike. I have no way of knowing that. But at the end of the day, there was 14 dead and 45 wounded on our side. So it was pretty massive. No LZ, so the helicopters were coming in, the medevacs, and the sky was literally full of choppers, gunships and medevacs, and everybody had to go up on the hoist, so it took a long time. I was 14 hours before I was medevaced because they were taking the worst guys first. If you can imagine, I was nowhere near the worst. It was pretty bad. But they eventually got one of the other units to come in and help them that was on the operation. And they made their way there and gave them cover. So, but I was medevaced out to Da Nang Field Hospital, and then from there to Japan. I was put in an Army hospital in Japan for a couple weeks. and then back to the States. And I spent 10 months in the hospital following that, in Philadelphia Navy Hospital most of the time. They were specialized in amputation and that sort of thing. There was a 3-man gun team. I was a gunner, and then we had two A gunners, ammo humpers, and one of them lost their opposite arm in the same exact place, and then one of the guys lost a thumb, and I think a minor leg wound, but it pretty much took our whole gun team out. After my time in the hospital in Philadelphia, I was medically discharged, so I was literally retired, medically retired. So I get a benefit every month for life, just as if I'd have spent 30 years, active service. So.